All right, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, and welcome all. This regular meeting of the Carefree Town Council, Tuesday, January 4th, 2022. Happy New Year to all of you. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, Candace. I think we just looked around. I believe everyone, all of the council members are here. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, I have everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Here
Pledge
it
of
is.
Allegiance. Vince, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
You
Sure,
know,
I can multitask.
he's
There we go.
driving here.
Oh, he's driving.
Fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Tony,
It's
would
like,
you please
Okay.
lead us?
all right.
Okay, here we go. I pledge
Okay.
allegiance to the flag,
Like,
United States of
United
America,
States of
America.
America.
to the republic,
And one nation,
nation,
under God,
under
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Let's do items number 1 through 4 on the consent agenda. Item number 1, approval of the December 7th, 2021 Town Council regular meeting minutes. Item 2, approval of the December 14th, 2021 Town Council special meeting minutes. Item 3, acceptance into the public records of the December 2021 paid bills. Item 4, acceptance of the cash receipts and disbursements report for October of 2021. Are there any of the council members that have questions, comments relative to anything on items 1 through 4? Hearing none, would accept a motion to approve items 1 through 4.
I move that we accept items 1 through 4 on the consent agenda.
Second
Thank
the
you.
motion.
Motion has been seconded. Any further comment? If not, Candace, would you please poll the council?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Johnson, how do you vote?
A.
Councilmember Geiger, how do you vote?
aye.
Councilmember Hatcher, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Croyer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Delicio, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Crane, how do you
Aye.
vote? And Mayor Peterson.
Aye.
That's 7-0. Nobody is absent today.
Okay, thank you. So items number 1 through 4 are approved. Item number 5 is called to the public. And let me read what the statement which we've done for this meeting and the 3 preceding meetings. Public comment during call to the public. An opportunity will be provided to members of the public to provide public comment through written submission to council members on any topic of concern or interest to them during call to the public. Political commentary, however, is not appropriate during the public comment section of this town council meeting.
Oh,
A
political,
member of the
Right.
public wishing,
did everything else.
pardon me? A member of the public wishing to submit a written comment must do so through the Carefree website, candace@carefree.org. For a comment to be read, it must be received by 12:00 p.m. noon on the day of the council meeting. Any comment submitted after that time may not be read until the next council meeting. A member of the public may submit only one written submission per council meeting, and it cannot exceed 1/2 of a page, double spaced in a minimum of 12-point type. Once 3 minutes have expired during the reading, you'll be requested to conclude your comments. During and following calls to the public, members of the council are prohibited by state statute from answering or responding in any manner to a comment, except in response to personal criticism or a false statement. Topics raised at call to the public that have not been published on the agenda cannot be discussed or considered by the council due to the lack of prior notice to the public. And what that means is if someone else were interested in that topic, it cannot be discussed until they have notice that they can participate. And at no time are political commentary for or against an issue permitted during council meetings. When one or more members of the council believe that a comment merits further review and discussion, they may refer to the town staff for further investigation. Staff will then investigate the matter and report back to the council when their investigation is completed. Public comment during the time when a topic is on the agenda and is under consideration. If a member of the public wishes to speak during the time that a specific topic on the agenda is under consideration, please use the raise hand feature on the bottom of your Zoom screen. Public comment raised during the time when a specific agenda item is under consideration must pertain to that agenda item only. Any discussion of ancillary or other points will not be considered. Any comment on a topic on the agenda not under discussion at that time will not be permitted. Comment cannot exceed 3 minutes. So, Candace, have we received any written comments to be read during call to the public?
No, Mayor, I have not.
Are there any with raised hands who wish to speak during call to the public?
No raised hands, Mayor.
No raised hand. Hearing none, we'll go on to the regular agenda. Item number 6, current events. John, I believe you mentioned that you had some things to bring up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Most significant thing is we're resuming our Carefree Desert Garden Seminar Series. The last one we had was in March 2020. And this Saturday at 9:30 in the pavilion, we have a speaker coming to speak about lush and low water landscapes. So it's very timely because we're in a drought, and the gist of the topic is how to maintain a desert in drought conditions without using a lot of water and having a good looking desert. Our speaker is Dr. Jacqueline Soul. So she is a very well recognized speaker on this subject. She's published over 15 books, has been published nationally in articles. So I would just suggest everyone to come on out Saturday morning, 9:30 in the pavilion. So it's you can be comfortable coming out outdoors and learning what she has to say. So thank you.
Good, thank you. I have one comment, and that is, for probably 2 to 3 months, we have been anticipating starting regular meetings on the first of the year. But with the onslaught of additional COVID variants, et cetera, we just didn't think it was safe. We don't want to expose any of our residents unduly to something. So, and the Zoom, I believe, has been working effectively. And if we were to go to the council chambers now, we would have to put a limit on the number of people who could come just due to spacing. So as soon as we can, hopefully within a month, but no promises, we will return to regular meetings in person as soon as we can. Any of the other council members have announcements, things of interest? Hearing none, go on to item number 7. Review, discussion, and possible action to accept the accrual reversals for the fiscal year 2021 audit. Jim, if I might ask you to lead us through that discussion, please.
Okay. The memo, this is something we moved money from that's received in July and August that gets put back into the last fiscal year. And the money came in this fiscal year. So this is reversing those entries and taking them out of our present GL system. And the list that you see in front of you is the biggest is the local sales taxes that came in July and August that were put back into June. And then we have some of the different IGA monies that came in that get reversed. And then we have some deferred revenues. We accept business licenses, and the business license starts on July 1st. So we move that money, that deferred revenue, forward, into the new year. So the total of all of these transactions is around $801,329. And so I restate the three financial reports that you have already approved. And now those financial reports are behind this, and each one of them has these amounts backed out of it and restated for July, for August, and for September. And so that's a process that we go through to make sure that those accruals are taken out of the present year. And so if anybody has any questions on any of those, it's a process we go through to make sure that money gets reversed where you don't think you can spend it because it's already been booked into the previous fiscal year. Any questions?
I think it's important to reiterate that it was a completely clean audit for last year. And this is an anticipated reversal of accruals that came in this fiscal year and putting them back where the auditors say that they belong. And it's something that we do every year.
I have a quick question, Jim. Just give me what's the main item we have listed here under deferred revenue?
Business licenses, the very deferred revenue. Is that what you said?
Yes, I was just curious.
Yeah, that's usually half of that amount. There's also payments that were made for rent at the fire department that get moved forward into the next year. We received them too early, so that's revenue that goes into this year. That's a chunk of that, 79,000. So there's a list of probably 5 items that get the revenue is moved forward.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions, comments? If not, I would accept a motion to accept the accrual reversals for the fiscal year 2021 as specified in exhibit number 7. $801,329 going back into last fiscal year.
So I'll move to accept the accrual reversals for fiscal year 2021 per the audit.
Thank you. Is there a second of that motion?
I'll second.
The motion has been seconded. Any further comments or questions, discussion? Hearing none, Candace, would you please poll the council members?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Dionisio, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Geiger, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Hatcher, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Croyer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Crane, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mayor Peterson, how do you vote?
Aye.
That's 7-0.
Okay, thank you. So that item passes. Item number 7. Item number 8. Thank you, Jim. First reading of ordinance 2022-01, and also the opening of the first public hearing for an amendment of the Carefree Town Code to address conflicting Class 1 misdemeanor penalties in Chapter 10 building and general inconsistencies which appear in the town code regarding penalties. Stacy, would you please walk us through what brought us here and what you're proposing?
I will, Mayor. Thank you. And please let me know if you cannot hear me. And I will. Oh, no, I think I'm good right now. But if for some reason somebody can't hear me, just let me know. As the mayor mentioned, these are some items that have come to our attention. I would consider them more like housekeeping items, but they are important in regards to how we manage and enforce our town code. So the next slide. Why is this important? This might seem obvious, but it is important for information in the town code to be clear and consistent. Consistent is what's key here. It's also important for a town code to be fully enforceable. So the consistency is what we wanted to address as one of the group of amendments in our town code. And a lot of these, in fact, all of these are tied into how penalties are described in the town code. So when there's a violation, there's a process and there's a penalty associated with that. So in our town code, the main penalty is a class 1 misdemeanor. But right now, it really only states misdemeanor in the code. But the reason we know it's a class 1 misdemeanor is based on its penalty. And that penalty, as defined by state statute, is $2,500, 6 months, potential imprisonment, and then probation to follow, or any combination of that. So that needs to be consistent throughout our town code. Because, and most importantly, to be enforceable, that penalty has to align with state statute. And that's something that we're looking to address in this amendment, or these amendments as well. So just in summary, the first part, these are the housekeeping items. As I mentioned, we want to be clear, we want to be consistent. We sometimes have said misdemeanor in our ordinance. We've also said class 1 misdemeanor in the town code, excuse me. We just want to specifically call out class 1 misdemeanor so that there's no question. I think that it's important for a town code to be understandable is key in terms of just people knowing what the rules are in our community. So in these 3 chapters, there's certain sightings where, while it's a misdemeanor and the penalty is accurate, we just felt it's best to be clear, because in the state of Arizona, there's 3 types of misdemeanors. So this way now, there's no question, it's a class 1 misdemeanor. You don't need to have background understanding if the penalty matches. You just know that for sure this is class 1 misdemeanor. Now, the second part, in terms of penalties, we did notice, and this was largely due to the town's prosecutor, Manny Bustamante, who's online as well and available for questions. He kindly sort of worked with me to point out what the inconsistency in our town code was. And in both chapter 10 and chapter 11, and I don't know how this came to pass. You know, town codes evolve over a lot of time. You know, laws and regulations change, but we had in these 2 sections, chapter 10 and chapter 11, we didn't have a state statute correct penalty. We had actually half the penalty, and maybe at the time there was some concern about having a full penalty associated with class 1 misdemeanor. But in having that today, the Carefree Consolidated Court will not accept a citation on those 2 chapters for any violation because there's not a correct state statute aligning with the penalty. So that's really the 2 main parts of this amendment that do need to get corrected so that we can enforce these 2 chapters in particular of of our town code. So like I said, I'm happy to answer questions, and also Prosecutor Manny Bustamante is available if you have some questions for him as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
It's just an observation. So we're not changing any of the penalties. We're just fixing the text of the town code.
Vice Mayor Crane, that is correct. I mean, it looks as though we're changing a penalty, but in fact, we're aligning it with the correct penalty. So, yes, it changed, but it's more of a housekeeping item to be sure that the whole town code is enforceable and accurate.
Thank you. I have one comment, and it's one that we've been discussing here, and it's on chapter 10 buildings. And it starts out, this is comprehensive building safety code violations and penalties. And it starts off, any person, firm, or corporation. And part of what we're questioning is an LLC, is an LLP? Do we need to expand the definition and make it more precise that we get all of the legal entities who could be building? And we're working on that. Mr. Bustamante, we would welcome any input from yourself We've been asking Mr. Wright, and he's been discussing it with us as well.
Mayor, the word firm is kind of an unusual to have in something like this as a restriction, other than, that doesn't really mean anything, I don't think. It's too generic.
Maybe it may be a throwback to when it was written
Yeah,
20 years ago.
I'd say firm, corporation, LLC, S corp, I think that's what you're thinking of.
Mayor, Councilmember Hatcher, and maybe the attorneys can clarify this. However, I think this goes back to, remember, this is part of our town code that relates to building and anything related to building permits, construction. And so I believe that that language kind of inclusively captures anything related to any of those types of activities. But I don't disagree with the mayor. And I mean, obviously with the legal input we have here, I mean, if we can make that better, stronger, more accurate, I think this is a good time to do so.
It's minor, very minor, I understand.
Yeah, I think what we should just be all inclusive. I don't know, would a trust ever build?
Yeah.
And so a trust, an S corp, an LLP, an
Say
LLC.
corp, that covers C and S.
Okay, the corporation.
Yeah, person, corporation, LLC, LLP, and or trust. Pretty much covers it.
Well, don't forget sole proprietors. There's multiple types of business entities.
Would that be better than person?
Well, that's what a person, yeah, you say person, that's local practice.
Yeah, I think so. I think,
Okay.
Okay, anything further? This is the first reading. Do we have any of the members who are, any of the residents and others who are observing this proceeding who have comments? Hands raised. Hearing none, I think we close the first public hearing and you'll be back again. We'll make these iteration changes to this. And then we'll come back. So thank you very much. Item number 9, review, discussion, and possible action to consider approval of resolution 2022-01, update of the economic development plan. And Steve, would you please take us through this? Would you like to sit here?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm going to do my best to be brief today.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Applaud in the background.
So 13 months ago, we went and we created the 24-month business plan, or our economic development work plan. And you have a copy of it, so I didn't want to just kind of run through all that, but I just want to kind of go back to really looking at what the fundamental focus is when we start looking at planning and economic development and how we try to approach this. And it kind of goes back to me, everything goes back to this idea of the 4 Ps of marketing. And that's product, price, position, and promotion. And when we talk about price in the context of a community, it's really the value proposition. And so when we look at how the activities that we do in economic development, a lot of people think it's just going out and trying to bring businesses in, and it really falls into that promotional piece. But a big component of that is looking at product and how we look at our product and what that product development looks like. And so, when we talked last time, that was kind of the primary focus that I wanted to look at as far as economic development. And that includes looking at, why we put the general plan amendment together for the 21-acre parcel at Tom Darlington and Cape Creek Road, is to really set the table so we can be successful in promoting things coming to the town. And the same thing with Town Center, was just doing the evaluative process and looking at how we can make this product the best product it can be. Because when you have a great product, honestly, the promotional piece, the value proposition, all that stuff starts to fall together. And then the other focus we have, and I think really why I was hired, was this long-term financial sustainability of the community. And in understanding, when we look over a 10, 20, and 30-year horizon, that it's extremely important that we look at how we're going to be able to pay our bills, and the trends are and I know we've said this a lot, but I think it's always good to reinforce it. The trends is that, our one-time money is going to dry up as the community reaches, its maturity and build out, and because that's primarily through construction sales tax. And so we really have to build a strong recurring revenue model that allows us, to really maximize our sales tax receipts, because that's one of the majority of how we're funded and how we fund our services. And when we look at doing that, and we start looking at the opportunities that we've outlined throughout the plan, that these things really need to feed upon each other. And so, the strategy we put together was that to maintain this local flavor of town center, that a destination strategy really is going to help support that, and that it's not going to take away from the types of businesses we have here, but it's going to complement the businesses that we have in town center, so we can maintain kind of the unique nature that we have. And so when we look at the things that we've done over this past 12 months, that's how we really focused the economic development plan and strategy. Just really at the key accomplishments, again, one of the things that I was asked to do when I was hired was to go out and really develop the relationships with the property owners and the businesses. And that's the first thing we started out doing. And in some way it was fortunate for the pandemic, because, when we really started this whole thing, the first thing we did was reach out to every single business in this community and talk to them about how we could, they could get assistance through. And I know this was prior to the 12-month plan, but it really did help set the table for getting to know these folks and to gain their trust. So again, I will always thank council for stepping in and helping out and making those phone calls. But, I would say at this point, just talking to property owners specifically, I think it really relates more to the town center area. Probably have communicated with directly and have relationships with probably right around 80 to 85% of those property owners. And they all seem to be in a very positive fashion. And it's the same thing with the businesses, just really positive with the businesses, really have a good relationship with, know them by first name in most cases. And I think, what we've seen is that, they feel very comfortable coming into our office, and some of them are even expanding their operations. We have Don Little over at Black Mountain, and now he's going to be opening up Grinding Gears and bought a building for another business here. So I think we're headed in the right direction with the relationships and being able to build and foster on the positive things that we have. And then we launched our Carefree Destination, which is really the idea of building a destination environment here, a destination stay, obviously with the Hampton coming in, and I'm not going to take credit for the Hampton, but the economic development effort will take credit for that. And so, I give Gary kudos and Stacy and everybody else and the mayor who was involved in helping make that happen in the community. And because it is really going to be a component to the general plan amendment site that we just did, Savannah, and Spirit in the Desert. And so, and eventually, if we look at the 45-acre parcel south of the airport, the state land piece, maybe there's a further opportunity to enhance that with another component to that mix that is complementary to the overall destination stay initiative. And so, the big accomplishment obviously was getting through the general plan initiative or the general plan amendment. And that went through successfully, and we still have to go through the zoning. Next steps on that is going to be going an outreach program to help bring a quality developer that we've talked about with the community and with council to that particular site. And then the big one really kind of started with the signage pact plan, and we worked that into a circulation and parking plan. And this is really in regards to the town center, and it kind of came really to fruition all this point, because we received so many different requests from the community about what they want to see and what is important to them, and that is safety is number one, obviously, with the crosswalks and with being able to navigate Tom Darlington and Cave Creek Road. And so this it's part of the circulation element, but it also comes down to just when we did the evaluation, and we did an extensive presentation on this already, just looking at the infrastructure and how it connects from neighborhoods into the town center, and then how it interconnects inside the town center. That's something that just needed to be addressed. And if you're going to be doing signage, we might as well address, how people are going to be able to navigate around in the first place. And the other part of it is parking. I've never said we don't have a parking problem. We've got a parking planning issue that we need to deal with. And that's just making sure that we best utilize the parking that we have by letting people know where it is, making it easily accessible, between businesses and parking, making the walk from one place to the next enjoyable. And then as we look at growth, how that parking is going to fit in and how we could utilize potentially Tom Darlington and Cave Creek Road as part of that. And so those are some of the things that, that will be included in that. And then really kind of what spawned through that, and then really having that conversation and, how we're going to fund these things and how we're going to really affect, revitalization and investment into the town center. And about 2 or 3 months into last year's plan, it became pretty obvious, and a lot of it had to deal with meeting with the Arizona Downtown Association folks. And it's a group of people throughout the state of Arizona that are my contemporaries that work on town center redevelopment and revitalization. And every single one of them was pretty adamant about the idea that, if you're going to do the things that are in your town center plan and the things you're talking about, that you really need to have a redevelopment area, because it enables all the tools and it enables the legislation and the state law that allows you to do things that you just simply can't do outside of that redevelopment area. And so we went through that process, contacted and worked with the property owners. And then in August, we were able to get the boundary approved for the redevelopment area. And as where we are right now with that is we're in the process of the market update, and that will help us lead us get to the land use update that will be part of the Village Center Master Plan. I kind of want to go through just some key economic development metrics here. And again, I'm not taking credit for the Hampton, but the town needs to take credit for the Hampton as part of its economic development effort. And this kind of just shows you, what we anticipate and what we expect, from the Hampton, and with the one-time revenue being construction sales tax of about $450,000. And then, in this year, if they can get open by February, March timeframe, I think based on my communication with Todd Cooley, these numbers seem pretty realistic for, what we can expect in 2022. And then, when we start hitting on all cylinders, obviously, as we move through time, inflation and everything else will affect these types of estimate numbers. And so I just kind of wanted to put something I think would be reasonable to expect over the next maybe 5 years on average.
Excuse me, Steve, can we advance the slides?
We should be advancing.
All I see is economic development 12-month update.
Oh, you haven't seen that yet? It hasn't advanced?
Has not advanced on my screen.
No, has not advanced at all.
Not mine either.
Well, I apologize.
Do you see that?
No.
This is Connie Glassby. Share screen and put in presentation mode.
Yeah, we have it now. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Got that? Okay.
All right. Did you want to see any of the previous slides, or are we good?
No, I'm good. This is a critical slide with a lot of detail. So this is good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of share this with you, and then then when we look at so the way it is direct sales tax revenue will be the direct bed tax that we get, and then food and beverage from that specific hotel for the Hampton. And then the indirect is really based upon, the estimates we got from what we think the spending is going to be. And when I started looking at those numbers, I based it around a study that the city of Scottsdale did for tourism spending. And it was done fairly recently. And so those were the numbers that were utilized to kind of assume how this would play out. Obviously, when you make these assumptions, you're assuming how much of that spend is going to be within the community itself. But if somebody's staying right here in town center and we have a walkable town center, in the community, I think that the idea that we'll collect, a larger portion or percentage from the Hamptons is pretty good. And so I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but I can share those with you if you want to see what my assumptions were. And, yeah. And then, just kind of, again, these, when we start looking at the general plan site that, that I mean, it could be a lot of different things. And so these are just, taking really some median numbers and that I received, just from some studies of what we would anticipate the type of development. These are the one times and the anticipated revenues. The one thing I do want to point out, and I pointed it out before, is when you looked at the plan and we looked at the site, the number we showed for the recurring revenue was going to be higher. That's because when we went through the process, we initially had neighborhood retail component included in that, and that neighborhood retail component was eliminated from that general plan site. So it really just went down to hotel. So what happened was we were looking at about 100-room hotel, maybe in that. Now we're looking at about 140-room type hotel that would replace what we thought would be, some type of neighborhood level retail. So that's, so we took a hit on the revenue, but when we start looking at land use planning and making sure things fit in the community, and we went through the neighborhood process, this is what came out on the other side. And so, we just need to be wary of, when we look at all the things in the context of our revenue generation, this is what the expectation is today. And then, so as we've gone through the process, there's two things that I'd like to do, to kind of modify the plan from where we were, when we started this 12 months ago. One is that, we had in there for the 45-acre state land piece to go through the same process we did with the Tom Darlington and Carefree Highway site. But where we had a definitive idea of commercial for that particular site, the 45-acre piece, there's so many things we've heard from the community, and there's things when I've done and just even looking through research of, the types of uses that could be out there and the variation of use. I think it really does need to probably go through a larger process through the community to kind of identify, do we want some type of open space public amenities out there, a dog park, and are there other things that have a higher and better use than just trying to put more just straight commercial on that site. And so I think at this point it would be better to go through the general plan update and make it part of that. And then the other part is when we originally did the plan, we weren't necessarily contemplating a redevelopment area. But as we got into that process, and we were going to create an economic development advisory board, and the economic development advisory board, it was really kind of a creation that I had that came from my days in Peoria, where we had a board that really kind of acted like the P&Z, but for economic development, where we could take policies and ideas and contracts that were going to be approved, vet that through that board, let them then make recommendations to council, and it truly was going to be a council recommendation type body like a P&Z. But when we got into the idea that really moving down towards redevelopment area, it just seems to make sense that, as we were looking to create that board, which would have been today, that per the state law, when we look at redevelopment areas, the Planning and Zoning Commission is the regulatory body that is required to do what we were contemplating with the Economic Development Advisory Board. So it just seems to make sense to not have two competing boards trying to make the same recommendation to the council. So at this point, I just want to go ahead and just say, let's just let the Planning Commission take care of that. And when you look at the makeup of our Planning Commission, it really does have a wide diversity of folks. And you can really see that when we went through the general plan amendment process of, everywhere from considerations of open space and community amenities all the way through economic development. So I think, it's a very good group. And so what I like to do is go ahead. Make that change. The next 12-month focus is going to be kind of the things we talked about, completing the signage and circulation and parking plan. But that also goes in hand with the town center redevelopment area plan. And so the way we structured this is that Kimley Horn subcontracted with Michael Baker International, who did the original Village Center master plan. So really what these things are going to do is run concurrently, because a big component of what goes into a redevelopment plan is going to be basically how the infrastructure plan looks, the types of infrastructure we want to build. And then really it kind of comes down to how you're going to fund and finance all of these things. And so that's going to be a part of it. So it really is convenient that we've combined all of this. And then we're going to go through a really robust community engagement process, which would include workshops with the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as public outreach to local HOAs in the adjacent neighborhoods. and the community at large. And that's all built into the contract that we have with these consultants as well. So, and if we have to go a little extra to educate, we will use those resources to whether we can do it in the council chambers or out in the pavilion to be able to provide open houses for the public. And the one nice thing that when we look through this is just going to be focused on infrastructure and economic development and revitalization, but there's also, I call it a community development or community asset component to this. When we start looking at, the comments I hear from a lot of folks is, I want pickleball courts and I want, I think it'd be nice to have this. And so I think this kind of opens up the conversation for more quality of life type infrastructure. And one thing I've noticed is a lot more people riding their bikes in the town center. Maybe there's opportunities where we can look at how we create, more of a strategy around that type of recreation, for our residents. And so that will be a component I think will get added into this conversation. And then, we'll look at now really ramping up more of the promotional side of things, specifically on the general plan resort site, and start reaching out to the types of resort developers we'd like to see develop in this community, the types of products we want to see, and as well as start looking and talking to some of the property owners about the types of tenants and even the businesses here that would be complementary and would fit in with town center and Carefree. And maybe there's it's a market like a Lucy's or something like that. But again, the idea is to keep it with a local flavor and flair. And then as part of all of this, again, one of the things we're evaluating is really where does town hall site go? And we know this site has a lot more potential. And so we've had those conversations with various different property owners, and we'll still keep looking at those types of various different options. And maybe at a later date, we go through the process, come back, and that'll be a component to the planning effort that we'll be undergoing over the next 6 to 8 months. So
I think it's important to reiterate at this point relative to the town offices. The town offices are on what I would call Class A property. It's on Cave Creek Road. It fronts on the Sundial Circle. This is an excellent location for restaurants, what have you. But the town and the town offices, people have to come here for building permits, etc., should be in what I would call Class B in the downtown area, but somewhere not in a prime retail location, something a street or two off of where we are. So that's been the thinking and I think the primary focus of our preliminary thoughts.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. And
Mayor,
one thing,
Steve, I have a quick question on that. Is the driver for relocating the town hall because we need more space, or we feel we can release an asset and bring value to the town by utilizing the current town hall for a business enterprise? Is that the driver? Which one?
Yeah, Councilmember Hatcher, yeah, it's both of those. I would say are driving that is that, well, it's because I think it's three things. One, I think that it's an underutilized asset for us. Two is I think it could be a keystone site for revitalization. So we can do something here that attracts more investment. And three, we're just running out of space, and I think we really need to find an alternative to have a better space and honestly a better interaction with the customer base.
Is there any single building in the town, Steve? I think you would know this, that has the space we need, or are there a few areas that you've looked into that provide the additional space we need?
So that's the challenge, is finding an existing building. There's not a lot of existing buildings. So, some of the options we're looking at is actually, right by where we have the water company and the public works. And so, where we have assets over there. And so maybe there's an opportunity that we can do something in that space. There's additional buildings that are in that area. And so, maybe we can build a larger campus. Maybe there's an opportunity to work with the adjacent property owner, with Mariachi Plaza to do something of a redevelopment nature there. So we had that conversation. The other, is there an opportunity to utilize the existing parking area next to, our current council chambers? We have that little parking lot. Is there an opportunity for a two-story building there? And we already have the office space above the council chambers maybe build something onto that and have that be kind of the central location with the parking that's already adjacent to it. And it's still in town center. So those are the things we're looking at. One thing that we could do is, if there's an opportunity, is maybe do some kind of land swap, or property swap. And it could be that, we find somebody who's got a piece of land, but they wanted to have this opportunity for development here. Then we can do a swap, and maybe there's ways that we can get the building built and get the land for free, or get, it has to be an even for even deal. So those are the things that we're gonna have to look at. And, and we're just not quite, those are just the ideas at this point.
I just thought of it. I'm sure this would be impossible, but it'd be kind of nice if it was actually a second level on the post office building. That would be a big building and lots of room and all centrally located, but I'm sure that's impossible.
Nothing's impossible. It just takes money to do it.
Yeah.
So anything's possible, but that's the thing is I think, when we go through this next 6 months in this processes, that we keep our creative minds open, and vet all of these different opportunities. I mean, that could be a cool thing, that we can do something there. I mean, I know we were there before, but doesn't mean that there's not an opportunity to make something work. So. And so at this point, really it's just like the council action we're looking for, because we created the resolution originally for the work plan, was to amend the resolution to appoint the Planning and Zoning Commission as the Economic Development Advisory Board, and then consider the state land parcel as the upcoming general plan update versus the general plan amendment, and move forward with that.
Are there any questions or comments from the council?
I have a question, Steve. Maybe this is better for Gary. So what is the schedule for the general plan update?
Actually, Mayor, Vice Mayor Crane, I'll try to address that. That's something that we're going to start to enter into very quickly, very soon. We're going to create an RFP to bring on a consultant to help lead us through that process, along with staff. It's going to take us through next year. I would say it's about an 18-month process. So I would say somewhere mid-June to we'll get the process done probably by I would say May or June of next year. And the general plan update is something that does go out to a town vote. So again, this is kind of off the top of my head. These aren't exact dates, but that's kind of the general feeling of basically by the middle of next year.
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one more question for Steve, if I may, pardon me. In the document, you reference a term, absorption analysis. Could you just elaborate a little bit on that, please?
Sure. The absorption analysis will be done in the market update, and the absorption analysis just looks at that, how much commercial based on the growth that we have can we absorb. So, let's say we have 10-15% vacancy, or 20% vacancy, and we're going to look to do some things that will add on additional commercial. Say, like for instance, this site here, can we absorb the commercial, or are we just shifting things around and playing a shell game with vacant space? So that will be part of the market study as we look at how we can absorb things over time.
Well, I sure hope we could do something with some of the vacancies. That just seems like a real issue.
And when you look at absorption, some of it is market driven, and some of it is property driven. And so those are the things we deal with, and like in Las Portales, it's I would say more site driven in some cases. That downstairs is extremely difficult to lease. And so it's just being able to work through those through the revitalization plan. And maybe in a situation like that, you minimize 5,000 square feet of commercial on that lower floor, and maximize the upper floor. And but if we do something else, can we still absorb additional square footage? And so, and how can we absorb that over time as we grow or the area continues to grow? And so that's why it's important to redo these market updates probably about every 5 years. And so we're right at the 6 or 7 year mark from the last one. So we're okay. And that'll be how we set the stage for talking about the revitalization component. And then when we get done with the plan, the consultant will evaluate where we are at the baseline today, evaluate all the planning efforts and say, okay, how is this grounded in reality? So, just to say that you want a bowling alley doesn't mean a bowling alley is going to work. And so those are the things that we'll continue to evaluate, from the baseline point of beginning of the process to the end of the process.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, I would accept a motion to approve resolution 2022-01, which is an update of the economic development plan as Steve has just described it to us here. Continue the progress that we've been making in that area.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion has been made. And did I hear a second?
I'll second. Let's move
Motion
forward with it.
made and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, Candace, would you please poll the council?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Geiger, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Hatcher, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Croyer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Delicio, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Croyer, how do you vote?
Uh,
Or, I'm sorry, I already got you.
Yes, I still vote yes.
You still vote? Okay. Vice Mayor Crane, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mayor Peterson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. That's 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Resolution 2022-01 passes. Item number 10, adjournment. All those in favor, raise your hand. And thanks to everyone and Happy New Year. And we look forward to a healthy and Happy New Year for everyone.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.